Capitalized citizenship is not a rebellion, it is a rebalancing. Balance begins with the mindset that we consume to create instead of consuming to merely consume again. The original framing was this: man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Meaning, life is not simply about consuming, it is also about creating. Consuming just to consume leads to overconsumption, exhaustion, and degradation of the energy needed to create. It is therefore unsustainable and destructive. When we consume to create, we innovate, inspire, and improve upon the energy cycle that gives us the vitality to consume in the first place. Also, when we consume to create, we become mindful of the process of moving beyond the victim, villain, hero states of consciousness, a process that is fundamental in bringing peace and sustainability to our civilization. Unbalanced consumption is something that we all struggle with, and we have developed an economy that demands it to survive. Fortunately, we can rethink how we interact with the resources in our economy. Basic economics often begins with the premise of infinite human demand confronting a strictly limited supply of resources. This picture, however, is misleading. Human appetites are not truly infinite. Physical and psychological limits cap what any individual can consume. Moreover, resources appear rigidly finite only when we assume both endless wants and unrestricted production and consumption capacity. Even if someone had unlimited money, no single human being can actually eat 10 steaks a day, drive more than one car at a time, or occupy more than one home simultaneously. After a surprisingly modest threshold, usually far lower than economists assume, additional consumption stops delivering pleasure and starts producing hassle, boredom, anxiety, and even social backlash. Status games too have sharply diminishing returns. In short, the human brain is wired for satiability, not infinity. Past a certain point, more becomes simply too much, and the enjoyment of consumption collapses long before physical resources run out. It is true that a tree can produce only a finite number of apples, but it is also true that a person can only consume a finite number of apples. When those two truths are balanced against each other, we have the foundation for genuinely sustainable wealth. Instead of insisting on an infinite demand, finite resource model, we can adapt a sustainable demand, sustainable resource model. This straightforward change to the core of how we conceptualize economic exchange could revolutionize our country and ideally the world, pushing us towards true balance, sustainability, and peace. We can move from scarcity to sustainability, then to surplus, and finally to abundance. But none of this will happen until we rethink how we design and source our financial systems. More importantly, if we wait too long to pursue meaningful change, we will lose our chance altogether. But how would a sustainable demand, sustainable resource economy work? To begin with, it will not work if the idea is to overthrow or violently revolt against the current hierarchical and elitist, scarcity-driven value exchange system and replace it with an anti-ownership value exchange system. The chaos and conflict of such a process would leave us more entrenched in our current immature form of value exchange. The goal is not to abort the system, but rather to bring it to maturity. For our society to invoke a peaceful transformation of our current value exchange system, it is essential to understand its nature and in general how it came to be. For simplicity, we'll refer to our current form of economic value exchange as the advantaged value exchange system, in that it primarily addresses the needs of the advantaged in our society. How did it become the driving force, determining who gets what and when? Imagine a classroom where children are learning addition. The teacher presents the lesson, sharing the steps or principles equally with all students. Some understand addition right away, while others will take more time. There will be those that require even longer to comprehend the same material, with a few lagging far behind in the time and effort needed to master the process. So though the process of learning addition favors no one specifically, in that it is shared with all classmates equally, some need less time and energy to grasp it. Now on to PE and learning volleyball. Again, some will need less time and energy to own the experience, while some may never be good at volleyball, with the rest somewhere in between. Now they learn music with the same results. There will also be a small group that needs less time and energy than the others to learn and master everything they are taught. This process has the overall effect of creating a hierarchy in a group that begins as equals. So it was with our ancestors. As survival lessons were taught in the classrooms of experience, some could learn and command their lessons in less time using less energy than others. Those natural leaders became relied on for those capabilities. As time passed, a natural hierarchy emerged, with those who could process information and perform vital survival tasks more efficiently, gaining advantage over those less capable. Some used their advantage to be protectors, while others became predators. The advantage of processing knowledge and skill sets with less time and energy than others in a peer group is to this day key in determining who excels, who breaks even, and who gets left behind. Those with advantage use their advantage to build a value exchange system to protect their advantage. This value exchange system directs our economy and therefore our societies today. It is a system of the advantaged, by the advantaged, and for the advantaged, designed to allow all newly advantaged to join the ranks of the older through interest-bearing, debt-creating loans. Those with surplus use their surplus to make laws and field armies that would protect their surplus from those whose desperation would lead them to acts of desperation. It has been securing and strengthening its position of advantage and dominance for centuries now. It is how we as a global civilization have become so prosperous yet allow such poverty. Some would argue that it fosters inequality, social stratification, and all the conflict that goes with an inequitable elitist society. They say that it should be rebelled against and overthrown due to its engendering of social strife, conquest for profit, and overconsumptive dependency. They further argue that it is now out of control and left to its own device, will surely devour and destroy the very humanity from which it sprang. But it could be possible that it has not come far enough, that its main shortcoming is that it is still not mature, it is not yet complete. Perhaps it is not falling apart or collapsing, perhaps it is growing up. In life, the arrow of time goes forward creatively, evolving as it grows, and growth brings growing pains. It is impossible to tell whether society gave rise to value exchange or if value exchange gave rise to society. Regardless, here we are, on the threshold of completion or the brink of destruction. We have yet to make up our collective mind. You may be wondering how it could be possible to say that a system designed to entice overconsumption, destroy natural resources, pollute for profit, wage war for energy control, and allow for unspeakable violence to billions of members of the human family in the name of economic stability or national security be allowed to continue. The answer is that it is not yet mature, and the longer we allow it to stay adolescent, the longer we will suffer its immature ways. How does a society's value exchange system mature? Only by the members of that society themselves maturing. Our advantaged value exchange system reflects our civilization's development, which once understood is very easy to address. We are not victims of a villain that we have no strength to fight. We are simply a society that is not yet mature, not yet complete, and not yet fully aware of our great potential. We will become it once we can see and communicate it to each other. Humanity is the latest development of life as it grows to completion. We appreciate, empathize, communicate deeply, invent, reflect, and regret. We feel our thoughts and think about our feelings. We grasp needs, wants, freedom, and law, drawing on all these traits to survive and thrive. Our desire to survive and thrive has led us to design institutions that, like ourselves, are alive. They too are born and need to grow and mature. Our current value exchange system is one such institution, and much like an egocentric, self-centered adolescent, it must be nurtured and directed through that self-destructive stage onto the self-actualization stage, and then to maturity. We can cultivate an environment where our adolescent value exchange system isn't left to its self-destructive, age-appropriate tendencies, but is allowed to mature and flourish by allowing every citizen to be equally protected, environmentally educated, and economically liberated. When we prefer to live in balance rather than to kill for control, when we are willing to die for our values instead of waging war in their name, our civilization will have finally outgrown its tantrum-filled, violent, self-centered adolescence. This change cannot be brought about by an armed revolution. It will require a subtle change, catalyzed by a simple readjustment of how we source our society's value exchange process. Once understood and implemented, this simple and profound change will become the foundation for a sustainable, capitalized citizens' economy. All we perceive is experienced as essence, expression, and effect. Only when we experience all three as one can we understand truth as it relates to what we perceive, for truth is the perception of unity. Credit has an essence, an expression, and an effect. The essence is trust, without which credit would not exist. The expression is the bringing together of two or more people's time and energy for the benefit of all, and the effect is the shortening of time and the release of energy. It's no coincidence that the invention of credit paved the way for the technological leaps of the past 300 years, or that revolving credit sparked history's greatest economic boom. A boom that put computing power in the hands of most citizens in the advanced markets of the world, and a large group of citizens in the emerging markets. This dynamic exchange of time and energy based on trust between individuals or groups of individuals creates credit, thereby allowing something that might never have been experienced to be experienced now. A house, a car, a once-in-a-lifetime trip, or the genius of an entrepreneurial enterprise or invention. Through the use of credit based on trust and reciprocity, tomorrow happens today, shortening time, releasing energy, and diminishing the space that divides us. The speeding up of value exchange via credit worthiness is the accumulation of centuries of fine-tuning the advantaged value exchange system we use today. Those with surplus and advantage had the time and energy needed to envision and enact such a system. But instead of enabling their capitalized credit system to give from the surplus of their advantage, they took advantage of those in need by turning credit worthiness into debt repayment with interest. In a world of scarcity, they used whatever means available to protect themselves and those they loved from the despicable conditions of scarcity. It wasn't evil or malicious, it was self-preservation. It made perfect sense in a world controlled by scarcity to create a financial system based on scarcity. Turning a citizen's time and energy into a future debt to be repaid with interest was impossible without promoting inequality, poverty, and unsustainability, but for a time kept the advantaged, those with surplus, insulated, separated, and somewhat protected from the disadvantaged who lived in scarcity and despair. But money created as debt, as loans with interest, has made our civilization vulnerable and fragile. We have become prey to ourselves. This realization is quite possibly our saving grace on the road to maturity and completion. For once we, the advantaged, recognize that the very system we have in place to protect our advantage threatens our lives as well as the lives of those we love, we will move swiftly and without reservation to reimagine this system, and therefore ensure we continue to survive and thrive. To complete our civilization, we must allow our value exchange system to mature by allowing all equal access to it. We must expand the sovereign truth on which our nation was founded to say, though all are created equal, not all can create equally. That natural inequality must never be exploited. This single recognition transforms how we exchange value, It moves us from a predatory, scarcity-driven system built on the myth of infinite demand and finite supply to a mature, surplus economy in balanced equilibrium. Much like a scarcity-driven economy gave rise to a scarcity-driven, indebted monetary system, a sustainably driven economy will give rise to a sustainably driven citizens' time, energy, currency, credit system, where the currency is sourced from each citizen's time and energy. How can we modify our value exchange system? It will take the reimagining of capitalism, not its overthrow. It will take the legal ownership and capitalization of each citizen's time and energy. It will require an updated method of value exchange, as well as the joining together of millions of like-minded citizens to enact legislation and amend their constitutions in such a way as to regain economic equilibrium and ensure environmental stability. It will take a miracle on the scale of a small band of colonies overcoming the most powerful empire on the face of the earth, with one awe-inspiring difference. For the first time in human history, it won't require an army of citizens willing to kill or die for their country. It will only require the collaboration of citizens willing to use their political liberty on behalf of economic liberty. And to understand there are no evil people, only evil outcomes.